top of the fence because, or the cage, because she can't get in. And then I always find her on the hay bale. If I don't come to the barn to let her out in a timely fashion, she's in there for hours. So she doesn't know to go back. The same way. She flies over from the inside but doesn't go back the same way. She just run around. So far it looks like my experiment of just throwing the potatoes on the grass is working. Every single one I put down has come up. So I'm just keep throwing straw on top of them and keep our fingers crossed. The cucumbers are doing really, really well, but I have to tie up a bunch of them. It's supposed to rain really, really heavy this afternoon. So I want to make sure they're really secure. There's one here to be harvested on the back side, and we've already harvested one, and it's, I don't know, July 11th or 12th or 13th, I'm not really sure. I thought I heard a chicken in here. I'm just using these little clips. Well, he got big really fast. I just checked him yesterday and he didn't seem ready to pick, but he is now. You have to check all the time, in no time at all. There's a few baby ones growing, so I have to check regularly. So he'll make a nice addition to tonight's salad. It's long over, but I kept my broccoli plants in to get off the little side shoots. So I'm going around today and getting what I can, and I guess the plants will have to be picked today or tomorrow. It's so hot today that I think we'll leave it, and it's supposed to rain so hard that they'll be easier to pick when the dirt is wet, and then the chickens can benefit from all the leaves. They really enjoy it.
These are my absolute favorite green beans for fresh eating. Not for canning, just for fresh eating. These are Canter. I got them from Baker Creek, and they are the most tender, delicious green beans. This is my first picking of this year. I don't know how many I'll get right now, but they are just absolutely delicious, and they're quite prolific. They don't get huge. They won't get much bigger than that, but they're very, very good. And the more I pick now, the more will grow. And all down this row is all Provider and Strike. And once they start, they just keep giving and giving and giving. I usually can't let a day pass through bean season without picking. And they'll give for quite long. I'll go into mid-August for sure picking them. And they'll just get bigger and bigger. Like this is small for a Provider. But if I don't pick them now, they'll get too big and they'll get away from me. I think my first canning session of the year is just around the corner. Not bad for a half hour's work in the garden. I have broccoli, zucchini, a golden zucchini, peas, 3 kinds of beans, and under the lettuce is wax beans, like yellow beans, and I think that's it. But I'm very pleased with that. Some will be put aside for canning, and some for fresh eating, and some will actually go in the freezer. Job well done tonight. These were the plants that kind of got crushed with that storm, that never really got propped up again or really recovered again. So they're kind of just lying on the ground. I know I planted them very densely, but they're kind of just laying here, but they seem to still be growing okay. I just have to really pick them up to find the beans, which is okay. It's worth it. So the theme of the week seems to be beans and zucchinis, which is awesome. And when I pick the beans, I keep them sorted by variety, and I weigh them in the house as they come in. And that way I can compare year to year what my yield is and which crop does better from time to time. And I weigh all the produce as it comes in. And at the end of the year, it's fun to see what my total is. So I also pollinated by hand some of the squashes since the storm to try and get some of the squashes going again. And that's it because I'm melting. So off into the house I go. I topped the onions for the very last time, and I think they're starting to get some pretty good size bulbing up. Some of them still are a bit small. So I fertilized them for the last time as well, and hopefully they'll get a little bit bigger. It's a time in the garden when all the flowers that I planted are starting to blossom, and things are starting to look so pretty, as well as give me food. And all of these were planted from seed that I saved from last year and probably even the year before. So they're basically all free, and most of them haven't even bloomed yet. They're really just starting now. I love when the vegetable garden can be pretty too. The peppers have finally really started to take off, and the ones that are being the most prolific right now are these pepperonchis. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Where's the label? Pepperoncini. And they're growing like crazy, and we tried them. You're supposed to pick them when they're 2 to 3 inches long, and they're, quite honestly, they're just meh. There's no special flavor to them. They're very thin. Like, I always try a few new peppers every year just for fun, because again, they're fun to grow and they're pretty, and they won't go to waste. I'll probably use them maybe in a salsa or something, but they're very prolific. I think I planted 4 of them, so I think I'll be giving lots away, as they're paper thin. I've never grown like this type of pepper before, so I didn't know what to expect. I swear the description said they were going to be much bigger, but it is what it is, and nothing will go to waste if we don't enjoy it. I have lots of family and friends that will. But so far, other than this, the only peppers I've really harvested has been a banana pepper and a green pepper. Everything else is still either in the green stage that hasn't turned to red yet, or whatever color it's supposed to. And that's okay. It's going to come. They're all loaded with what they should have. Really giving my celery a good cut. We've been eating from it, but today I want to harvest a lot of it and dehydrate it. So I'm going to be pretty brutal on a lot of it. Even if it's not terribly thick, I want it to keep growing. So I'm just going to cut away, even if some of them I take are a bit on the small side. That's okay. And I have been enjoying it fresh very much. I think celery is very refreshing. Even if they're small, I'm going to cut some of them completely back. These ones here are the self-blanching. They seem to be doing better than the cutting celery. They're getting much better size stalks. I get annoyed the odd one is hollow. I'll give that one to the chickens, but I read that it's due to lack of watering, but they're watered constantly, so I make a point of making sure they're thoroughly watered, and I give them lots of fertilizer. There, not bad for a few minutes work in the garden. Well, maybe 15. And I probably could have scrounged around for more, but it's way too hot. And I want to get that celery going in the dehydrator. I find fresh celery from the garden just wilts real quick. So in the house we go. Before I get the celery in to dehydrate, I have to empty what I put in yesterday. So I have some chamomile. I know it's a much bigger jar than is needed. It's the one I had clean on hand. And I'm hoping to dehydrate a lot more on top of that. I don't drink a lot of it, but I like to have a bit on hand. I'm more of a coffee drinker. I have one caffeine coffee in the morning and one decaf in the afternoon. Okay, the other rows I have basil, 2 rows of basil and 2 rows of parsley. And I have containers for them, but what I like to do, it's my first time doing the dehydrating for them this summer, I'd like to go through and take out last year's herbs because I prefer them fresher, obviously. So I want to take out what's there in my pantry so they don't get so much to the air. I'm just going to put them in these bags for now, and I'll transfer them after. I had a lot more broccoli, but I made broccoli. Oh my gosh, the sun got to me. I had a lot of basil already, but I made a basil pesto. So we used quite a bit of it for that. And I froze half of it. So we ate part of it and I froze the rest. So there. I'll take care of these after. I just didn't want them exposed to the air for too long. So I'm just going to tidy up my racks and we'll get going on the celery. I've already spilt water all over myself. And I'm really, really disappointed. It's all a good size. It's all crunchy, but most of it is hollow. And I know that can be caused by lack of watering and nutrients. And I know it's not nutrients because, first of all, I put in a lot of the trifecta that I tried this year. And I thought I was watering it on a regular basis, but I just read that even on hot days, it should be watered twice a day. I've grown celery before and I've never had this issue, but like it's all hollow inside. I don't know if you can see that. Like you can even hear it. There's nothing to it. Oh, and it's all like that. Well, not all. There's a few good ones. But I'm not going to waste it. I mean, and when you bite into it, because it's hollow, all you're getting is mostly like the stringy parts of it. So what I'm going to do for sure is, first of all, cut off all the leaves. And even those, I'm going to dehydrate some and make like celery salt or something. And I'll freeze some to put in when I make a bone broth or even some soups. But first I'm going to pull out the ones that are good, and I'll still chop up some because depending what I'm putting it in for flavoring, it will still work as a flavoring thing. But depending what I'm using it for through the winter, it can't be like hollow and stringy. So I'm going to pull out probably the 10 that are in this whole pile, and then I'll come back and I'll cut them up and show you what I do to dehydrate them. But that's a major bummer. Well, it's even worse than I thought. I barely should count that one. It's a twig. 1, 2, not even 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11-ish. 11 real stalks or ribs, whatever you call them. And all of these are hollow. And it's a big pile of celery. So I'm going to cut up the good ones, and I'm going to mark which trays they're going to go on so I know for sure. And when I package them up, I'll know which are the good ones. And I'll still chop up them and like dehydrate them or whatever. And I'll just label them to know what purpose to use them at a later time. But that's so upsetting. And I really thought, even if I didn't water the whole garden, I always made sure like they were planted like at the very front of the garden. So even if I didn't get to water the whole garden, I always had the hose there, like just to water them, because I knew they really liked a lot of water. I made sure they were getting fertilized frequently. And it's 2 different types of celery. It's not just one, it's 2. So let's chop them up and get them on some racks and make this better than how it is. This garden this year, man, it's just yikes. Anyway, let's turn this around. I don't mean to be whiny. I'm trying to still be very grateful for what I'm getting. It's just so discouraging sometimes. You try and do everything right, and I guess I should have been picking it more frequently, and then I would have noticed this sooner. But I was waiting till it, like, all of it kind of got more, like, all big so I could do a bigger harvest. So I'm just going to dice them up kind of small for these ones, because these ones I'd like to keep, like, to put in, like, in, like egg salad or something like that, since these are the good ones. See, these ones have a nice crunch. They're cutting beautifully. And then the thin parts I'll put somewhere else. So what I have for my dehydrator is I use my Instapot. I have these racks. There's 5 levels. And I just put everything on. They fit all on top of each other. And I have a dehydrating function on my Instapot. And that's how I dehydrate. It doesn't hold a whole heck of a lot, but that's what I have, and that's how we work. And it suits me just fine for now. I just have to do things in smaller batches, and sometimes it takes me longer to get things done, but it all gets done in the end. You hear that nice crunch? Because they have an inside. I don't like these little tough parts where it joins. I've also canned celery, which I really liked as well, because when I've put it like in a soup or a stew, the liquid that you get from the celery being canned, oh my gosh, the flavor. I still may, but I'll have to see what the rest of my harvest is like. But canned celery is awesome. All right, I'm going to fill up the rest of my trays, and then I'll show you what it looks like in my Instapot. So there's my little 5-tier dehydrating racks that go in my Instapot. Here's still lots of celery. I barely made a dent. And then all the leaves over there. So I'm going to wrap up the rest of the celery in aluminum foil to keep in the fridge, because it lasts forever when you wrap celery in aluminum foil. And I'll show you how I put it in the Instapot. My little stack of racks. Put them in my Instapot. Oops, I don't know why it was on. I turn it on, and I had it already on dehydrate, and they recommend, I have a Ninja Tender Crisp. They recommend 135 for dehydrating. I don't do my herbs at that. I do my herbs lower. I'm going to start it at 6 hours. It may need longer, but I'll start it at that. And there it goes. So I usually have this running overnight, and then I'll do something else in the morning, because I can't fit a lot obviously at one time. So it pretty much runs all the time between herbs and different things. I have it running overnight, and then I fill it up again in the morning. But it does the job, and I get to use my Instapot in all different ways.